It's time to dust off the Collector's Series. This series shines the spotlight on an individual character or group, and it focuses on identifying affordable but collectible issues that will help you bulk up your collection. 2024 is going to be a big year for the Merc with a Mouth, so let's restart the Collector's Series with a bang, with our spotlight on Deadpool. Kicking off the list in the number 10 spot is a modern classic, Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe #1. This 4-issue miniseries kicked off in October 2012, and the plot was pretty simple. Deadpool kills everybody. Starting with the Fantastic Four in this issue, by the time the series wraps up, Deadpool has pretty well killed his way through the MCU and has made it to the nexus of all realities. There's been a fair amount of speculation that some elements of this story may be included when Deadpool 3 hits the theaters later this year, as the plot ties in fairly well with the multiverse mania that we currently have going on in the MCU. Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe was written by Cullen Bunn, drawn by Talibor Talajic, with a series of fantastic covers from Carrie Andrews. In the current market, high-grade raw copies have been selling for around $20 to $30 for the first issue, but a complete set of the series is going to run you in the neighborhood of $100. If you've ever wanted to see the best and brightest of the Marvel Universe meet an unfortunate and gruesome end, then this may be the story for you. Up next is the book where the Deadpool we all know and love started to take shape. The number 9 book is January 1997's Deadpool #1. Artist Ed McGuinness and writer Joe Kelly's Deadpool ongoing series would prove to be transformative for Deadpool. Over the course of the first 33 issues of the series, Joe Kelly would take Deadpool from a fairly bland killer to the inappropriate, quick-witted, homicidal maniac we all think of today. Believe it or not, this was actually Deadpool's third #1 issue, with Deadpool The Circle Chase #1 from 1993 and Deadpool #1 from 1994, another miniseries, preceding it. Besides being a collectible #1 issue, and we all know the 90s had plenty of those, one of my favorite Deadpool supporting characters also makes their first appearance in this particular issue, Blind Owl. A few years back, this book was pushing $100 raw, but recently sales have been ranging between $30 and $50. It's hard to understate the importance of this volume of Deadpool to the character's development, and don't be surprised if you see a few more issues of this particular series pop up on the list as we move on. Deadpool has a great supporting cast of characters around him, and one of my personal favorites is that of Hydra Bob. So, for our number 8 book, let's take a look into Bob, Agent of Hydra's first appearance in Cable and Deadpool number 38. Bob is a fitting sidekick for Deadpool. His background story is absolutely ridiculous, but, somehow it works. Bob was convinced to join Hydra by his wife after he couldn't hold down a job. Being a little on the impressionable side, when Bob ran into Deadpool as he was trying to escape from a Hydra facility, Deadpool was somehow able to convince him to help him escape, and the pair have worked together ever since. Cable and Deadpool number 38 was published in May 2007 from the creative team consisting of Deadpool co-creator Fabian Nicieza and Riley Brown. An up-and-coming artist named Scotty Young provided the cover for the issue. Recent sales for this one individually come in around the $10 to $15 mark, but I've seen several instances where this issue was part of a lot that sold for considerably less than that. And honestly, I bet if you hit the dollar bins hard, you can probably find a copy of this one sooner rather than later. Next up, in the number 7 spot, is what may be the most abundant second appearance in all of comic books, X-Force #2. When the X-Force title launched in 1991, it was a continuation of the New Mutants title that had ended with issue 100, following Cable renaming the team X-Force. Published in September 1991, Deadpool makes his second appearance and second cover appearance after debuting in New Mutants 98 earlier in the year. Co-creators Rob Liefeld and Fabian Nicieza are still along for the ride as the creative team for this issue. This book is one that every Deadpool fan should probably have, but no one should pay hardly anything for. X-Force 2 is seriously one of those books that you're likely going to pay more in shipping for than you'll pay for the actual book if you order it off the internet. You can find this one in discount bins aplenty at just about any comic book show and probably comic book store. But whatever you do, do not pay more than $10 for it. With a little patience, I don't think you're going to have a problem finding this one for $5 or maybe even less. 1997 was a dark time for Marvel Comics. The company had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in December 1996, while at the same time the creative quality of their stories across the entire catalog were suffering. Spider-Man's long-running Clone Saga arc is really a perfect example of this. Now, one of the few bright spots as we look back on that period is the 1997 Deadpool series. We've already covered the first issue, but for the number 6 book, we're turning our sights to Deadpool number 11, one of the series' most popular cover buys. Cover artist Pete Wood's Amazing Fantasy 15 cover swipe has always helped drive the popularity of this issue. I see it on walls all the time at comic shows I go to. And honestly, it sounds like a pretty fun read as well, as the Joe Kelly and Pete Woods story has some Back to the Future vibes as Deadpool and Blind Al find themselves trapped inside of Stan Lee and John Romita's Amazing Spider-Man number 47. On top of that, this issue is straight up beefy. The story is 50 pages long, and it's not even the only story in the book. This December 1997 issue of Deadpool never seems to last long, as it has a great combination of appeal and affordability. Typically, I would expect to pay between $20 and $30 for a nice raw copy of this issue, but newsstand copies can go for nearly double that. By the late 90s, newsstand copies were relatively few and far between, which really helps to bump up the values on those particular issues. A really weird thing happened in the 2020 comic book boom. Well, I mean, that may be the understatement of the century, as a lot of really weird things happened in the comic book boom, but the thing I know I didn't have on my bingo card was that Marvel trading cards from the 90s were going to go to the moon. Sealed boxes of Marvel Universe Series 1 were seriously going for thousands of dollars. PSA 10s of cards that nobody had given a crap about for years were going crazy, and it was even a phenomenon that wound up affecting the comic book side of the hobby, and specifically our number 5 book for a very particular reason. Deadpool's rookie card was packaged inside of a selection of X-Force number 1's print run. In fact, X-Force number 1 was the first comic in history to be sold in a poly bag that also included a trading card along for the ride. But, I mean, as we know, God knows it wasn't the last time. Each X-Force number 1 was packaged with one of 5 different trading cards. There was an X-Force team card, a Cable card, a Shatterstar card, a card that had Sunspot and Gideon on it, and finally a Deadpool card. As I recall, people were paying upwards of $30 for a sealed copy of this book with a Deadpool card, hoping that they could possibly land a PSA 10 and flip it for all the monies. While Deadpool doesn't make an actual appearance in the issue's story, there does happen to be a character bio inside, if that's of interest to you. This Rob Liefeld and Fabian Nicieza effort was published in August 1991, and there are untold copies of this book still sealed in their original plastic bags. And yeah, this is one of the few books that sentence actually applies to. And copies that are packaged with the Deadpool card are still sought out by collectors. You can generally find this one for $3 to $5 in most cases, but don't be surprised if you have to pay a small premium for copies with the Cable and Deadpool cards. Those are by far the 2 most sought after versions. In today's market, I wouldn't be surprised to see them going for $10 or $15. For our number 4 book, we're going to check out an annual from 1998 starring Deadpool and Death. As we've already talked about, Deadpool's first successful ongoing title started in 1997, and by the summer of 1998, series writer Joe Kelly was really hitting his stride. Earlier in the year, Kelly had debuted a new villain named Ajax in Deadpool number 14, and now, just 2 months later, Ajax was co-starring in Deadpool's second annual. The premise of this jumbo-sized issue was pretty straightforward again. It's origin story time. As the story unfolds, Ajax kills Deadpool, and as Deadpool's life is flashing before his eyes, we go along for the ride and see how he became the unhinged unaliver that we all know today. At the end of this backstory, Deadpool decides that it's not his time just yet, and he returns to the living world to seek out revenge against Ajax. The story was titled A Kiss, a Curse, a Cure, and it was written by Joe Kelly and drawn by Steve Harris. Bernard Chang drew the wraparound cover that featured Deadpool and Death. This origin issue isn't one I come across a lot out in the wild much, which kind of makes sense as Deadpool wasn't nearly as popular in 1998 as he is now, and annuals tend to underperform standard issues sales-wise in general. Recent sales for higher-end raw copies have been between $10 and $20, which seems like a more than fair price. And if you're curious about reading order, this one picks up where Deadpool 17 ended and continues on in Deadpool number 18. Who doesn't love a good hero versus hero issue of a comic book? You've got The Thing versus the Hulk, or Spidey versus the Human Torch, and Deadpool versus the Punisher, which is what we find in our number 3 book, Deadpool number 54. Published in July 2001, Deadpool 54 is the first meeting of the Punisher and Deadpool. Surprisingly, it took over a decade for two of Marvel's most lethal characters to cross paths. This tale, which was titled End of the Road Part 1, was penned by Jimmy Palmiotti and Buddy Scalera, with interior art from George Genty and a Steve Dillon cover. This is really just a fun issue all around, and seeing these two together in the MCU would fire up even the most jaded of fanboys. For their sake, let's just hope that if and when it happens, it's in an R-rated movie, so the two can really let loose a bit. Recent sales have been fairly consistent for higher grade raw copies. Most sales have been in the $40 to $50 range, but a few in late 2023 sold for just $25 and $30. In the runner-up spot, we're going to tackle another collectible first meeting issue, but this time out, it's the first time two of Marvel's funny guys cross paths in Cable and Deadpool number 24, the first meeting of Spider-Man and Deadpool. As a Spidey fan, I've kind of always felt that Deadpool was a bit of a hyper-violent Spider-Man ripoff, but I also admit that they make a great pairing. And I'm clearly not alone in this, as in 2016, Marvel launched a Spider-Man Deadpool ongoing series that would run for 50 issues before it finally ended in 2019. Switching back to our featured title, the Cable and Deadpool series started in May 2004 and would run for a total of 50 issues as well, ending in 2008. Cable and Deadpool 24 was published in March 2006, a full 15 years after Deadpool made his first appearance. To me, that just shows that Marvel really didn't know what to do with the character initially, and that it wasn't until Joe Kelly expanded on the foundation that Liefeld and Nicieza provided that Deadpool really came into his own. Once this identity crisis was solved in the mid-2000s, Deadpool was going everywhere and mixing it up with everybody in the Marvel Universe. Recent sales have been strong for Cable and Deadpool 24, with most higher grade raw copies selling around $50 or $60. But in mid-January, a raw copy sold for $193.50 on eBay. Now, for perspective, this was $41 more than a CGC 9.6 that sold just 2 days before, and another CGC 9.6 sold for $198.76 just a few days later after that massive raw sale. My suggestion would be to hold out for one of those $50 to $60 opportunities. There's simply no need to pay 9.6 prices for raw copies. Topping our Deadpool Collector's Series Top 10 is a book that was the first attempt Marvel made to get Deadpool out of the X-Force world from which he came and into a book that people were actually reading, Wolverine number 88. Published in December 1994, this issue was really the first time the Merc with a Mouth made an appearance in a top-tier Marvel book. In the early 90s, Wolverine was an exceptionally hot title, tons of readers, and this was all built off of the character's popularity in the main X-Men titles, the Fox cartoon, and multiple other forms of media that the X-Men had spread into during their peak. Prior to Wolverine 88, Deadpool had crossed over in an issue of Silver Sable and the Wild Pack, and had also appeared in a Toys R Us promo comic, but for the most part he'd been limited to the New Mutants and X-Force books from which he came and his own original miniseries. Wolverine 88 had a strong creative team with Larry Hama providing the script and Adam Kubert handling the interior and cover art duties. The story was titled It's Deadpool, folks, and it's here that Wolverine and Deadpool face off for the very first time. They'd previously met in that Toys R Us promo comic that I mentioned just a second ago, but they did not square off directly in that issue. Wolverine 88 was a bit of a dark horse for several years, but once rumors that Hugh Jackman's Wolverine would be appearing in Deadpool 3 started circulating, this one started to defy gravity. Recent high-grade raw copies have been selling between $80 and $100, with an impressive volume of sales as well. Wolverine 88 has become a top 3 Deadpool key, coming in only behind New Mutants 98 and the Venom Deadpool What If #1 as far as value is concerned. Deadpool reminds me of Spawn and Harley Quinn in a lot of ways, and you may be thinking that's a curious combination of characters, But in my experience, those three characters outside of the pop culture juggernauts like Batman and Spider-Man bring in more new people to the hobby than just about any other characters I can think of. They're fun, they're accessible, and for the most part, they're affordable characters to build a collection around, and as we all know, comics are like Lay's potato chips. You can't have just one. You start with Deadpool, and before you know it, you're buying Bronze and Silver Age X-Men or Copper Age black and white indie books, and it just spreads from there. You become a comic book collector. Gateway characters like these keep the hobby alive by attracting new collectors, and it's up to us to welcome them into the community. The stronger the community, the stronger the hobby, and the longer we'll all be able to enjoy it. It's good to have the Collector Series back. Let me know if you have any suggestions for future installments down below in the comments. Collect responsibly, and I'll see you in the next video.